Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Movie Season. Today we are talking about Halloween Ends, the movie that came out this past weekend. They say it's going to end the franchise, but we'll see.
They never said that.
Didn't do well. Yes, they did.
It's going to end Laurie Strode's saga.
Yeah. All right, so this doesn't happen very often, but we have two very different opinions about this movie. So
we haven't talked about it at length though until tonight.
No, we just kind of gave our brief thoughts about it. So I'll be honest, I hated this movie. There was only a couple things that I kind of enjoyed about it, but for the most part, I couldn't wait for it to end. I think it's only like an hour and a half. It's not very long, but it seemed way longer than that for me. Justin, just quickly talk about what you thought about the movie.
Hey, listen, not a sponsor, but let me get a little Dr. Pepper here so I can really dive in here. I love this movie, man, and I know you thought I was trolling you because I was texting you last night.
Dude, I still think this is part of a gag.
Dead. All right, I'm being completely serious. I'm not messing around. Like, I would tell you at this point, like now that we're recording this episode, I would tell you I'm dead serious. I love this movie, man. I thought it was, and we're going to get into this as it goes, but just my initial thing, and we haven't talked about any of it yet. We just basically said, I saw your tweet about it, and when I watched it, I just kind of texted you and said, like, hey, I'm watching this. And you're like, oh, okay. And then when I got done with it, I was like, man, the movie was awesome. And, that's pretty much all we said is you hated it. I loved it. And this is why it's going to be kind of fun to discuss it. Because I'm genuinely interested to hear why you hated it so much. I think I know a few things that you hated about it, but I'm actually interested to hear this. So this is kind of exciting for me.
Okay. All right. So, and I know why you like certain things about it to begin with, because it kind of ties in, or it's got similar theming, I guess, to another Halloween movie that you really like. But yeah, I'll be honest. I knew from about 10 minutes in that I just wasn't going to like this movie. Yeah, I guess one of the bigger issues I had with it is, so I actually kind of like the beginning where. And look, we're going to get into some spoiler stuff. I mean, there's just no way around it. So if you haven't seen it, watch the movie first. And then this will probably be better after you watch it. But I didn't have a problem with the beginning where the kid accidentally, that guy accidentally kills that kid. I wasn't crazy about it, but it was kind of like one of those shock things where I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess they're really, going for the fences on this one. But after that, just everything. First of all, the character, the main guy, Corey or whatever his name was one of the most like bland characters I can ever think of. And he just like the whole romance thing between him and Laurie Strode's granddaughter was just
slow down.
Oh my God, dude.
Let's take it one step at a time.
Let's just start with. All right, let's just start with kind of the synopsis of the whole thing. So they kind of told you that this was going to be Laurie Strode versus Michael Myers for the last time.
Right. That's what you're talking about? Okay.
Right. So that was completely wrong. That really had almost nothing to do with the movie. So to me, that was disappointing. And look, I get that you're trying to like throw people off and you don't want people to know exactly where it's going. Fine. But don't, she's been in the series for what, like 9 movies, and you're hyping it up, and then you completely do like you go on the off ramp to something completely different. I don't think I would have had as much a problem with it if they didn't market it so heavily on, Strode versus Myers and this and that. So talk a little bit about just kind of your overall feelings, and then we'll kind of break down the different like relationships and dynamics.
All right, well, I'll kick it off with the beginning because that's why I said to slow down, because you were going into like different stuff, and I'm shocked that you didn't like it. I thought maybe when you started disliking it was what you alluded to with the romance part of it. All right, now I'm not saying there's not some flaws with the movie. I'm not trying to sit here and say it's like the greatest horror film of all time or anything, but I loved what they did with this because me personally, I didn't want to see Mike Myers versus Laurie Strode. I felt like I already got my fill of that in Halloween 2018, the David Gordon Green trilogy. And I felt like I already got that. I said that director's name, right? Because I know that I just got to make sure so I don't like I don't want to keep going if I got that wrong. Let me just type this in real quick. Make sure I have his name right.
Well, I like how your monitor brightness is on like 300%.
Yeah, David Gordon. I just wanted to make really sure because if we would have said that, we would have kept going. I was pretty sure I couldn't remember his middle. But anyway, him and Danny McBride kind of made this trilogy, right? I've had mixed feelings on the trilogy as a whole. For the first time, after watching this, I kind of saw it as a full trilogy, and the whole thing. This movie made the whole thing work more than I thought it was going to. That's how much I liked it. And the thing that I think that, and again, just staying on the beginning, I think what they did that was so masterful at the beginning was you thought, you just knew every other horror movie, every other Halloween movie has started pretty much the same way. Like there's always an early kill for the most part. And you just knew like, hey man, that like something's going to happen. Either the kid's going to get killed. They're all going to get killed. This dude's definitely going to get killed. You just figured it was going to be the first victim. Right. And they completely flipped that on its head by, and it was a kind of a shocking thing what happened, and I just thought that was really a cool way to kick it off. Was like, oh, wow, that's a little different. And then you just thought like, okay, well, that's kind of the first thing. How's this going to tie in? And the whole way it tied in for me was super unpredictable, which you don't really get a whole lot in these Halloween movies anymore. I mean, the Halloween franchise, has been hit or miss. I think there's been more hits than misses, just barely. But when Halloween does it good, they do it good. And I was the exact opposite as you. As soon as the first, I'm telling you right now, 30 minutes in, I was fully in. Like I was like, dude, I'm loving what's going on here. Like I'm loving this. And we'll get into more of what I loved about it now that we're going to talk about other scenes. But just my overall opinion of the movie is that it did some different, unique, bizarre things that I feel like if the Halloween franchise is going to continue after this, they had to do this with it. And I just think that it opens up this different dynamic. And again, if you're a huge Michael Myers guy and you just focused on Michael Myers, yeah, I can understand totally why you're probably a little pissed off about it. But for me, I just think that, and we're going to get into this later, but I just feel like it worked for me. I love the vibe of the movie. I love the whole story of it. I loved the whole way they kind of did this one.
So one of the first things that really stood out to me was this romance that they have between Corey, who's the main character, I guess, and Laurie Strode's granddaughter. And something I noticed early on is like no one in Haddonfield knows how to talk to someone of the opposite sex. Like he can barely get 2 words out. She has to ask him out. A guy that, as far as I know, just got out of jail for murder. She's instantly in love with him. And then what's the guy's name that's in Remember the Titans?
Will Patton or
yeah,
Will Patton.
And then he can't talk. The whole scene with him and Jamie Lee Curtis in the grocery store was like so awkward. Like neither one of them knew how to talk to one another. It was weird. Now something that I did kind of like, and I wish they, and I guess that's my problem, is it seemed like it was trying to do 2 things at once. It was trying to do a whole thing of the Laurie Strode and Michael Myers thing, but it was also trying to do a whole story about Haddonfield and how Haddonfield is like this place where just evil just kind of lives, right? And I was okay with that part, but I guess when they tried to mix them together, it just didn't work for me. And then there is one thing I did like in this movie, and I like the music. The music was really good. And I know that's like a weird thing to kind of, but I did, I guess I liked the vibe, what you were talking about, the vibe of the movie or kind of the feel of it, but just nothing else really worked for me. And I guess it started with that whole relationship thing. And, I mean, how did you feel about that, their relationship, and how it just blossomed out of nothing?
That I had a slight issue with that. I mean, I again, when I said that this movie's not like, perfect or anything, that was a bit of an issue I had, was how quickly they kind of got together. And like you said, the guy who played Corey, I wanted to make sure, because he's kind of a newcomer. I haven't seen him anything else, but Rowan Campbell. I thought he was great in this, man. I mean, I really liked the character. The only other issue I had with it was like, he was kind of getting bullied a little bit, and he's kind of a grown man, and he's kind of getting picked on by some high schoolers. And, that was kind of like, I felt like they upped that a little bit too much, because you kind of still want to believe that he's got something there that Allison sees in him. And, she does see like somebody else that, kind of is an outcast in the town. But you alluded to it. I think the whole trilogy's been about the town more than it's been about Laurie Strode. I
will agree with that on this. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, but I definitely think that way of the second one for sure. The second one, I think, did a good job of that.
Yeah, and for me, this one was kind of Allison's movie. Like, I felt like this one was I felt like the first one was Laurie's movie. I felt like the second one was, and I forget her character's name, but Judy Greer's movie. And I felt like this one was Allison's movie. That's kind of, I don't know if that was intentional, but that's what it felt like to me. So I do understand kind of a little bit of the, because this is a pretty divisive movie, which is kind of cool in and of itself, of a Halloween movie in 2022 that people have such strong opinions on it. But I do understand that if you wanted more of like a Laurie Strode movie, why you were a little disappointed, or you wanted more Mike Myers, I totally get that.
But here's the thing. I didn't even want that. I honestly was tired of the Laurie Strode thing. I just felt that they were, and I guess that's kind of where my problems are, is, like I said earlier, I felt like it was two movies that they were trying to combine into one. And when they tried to do that, they didn't do either one of them well, in my opinion. And then it just kind of, I don't know, maybe it's something I wasn't paying attention to, or maybe you can, shine some light on it. But so he goes down into like a sewer,
Corey,
and that's where he runs. Yeah, and that's where he runs into Michael, who I guess has just been living in the sewer for 4 years. And Michael, you think Michael's going to kill him, but Michael doesn't. He is somehow able to read his thoughts, which is new to me. I didn't know Michael Myers could read people's minds. Read his thoughts and then spares him. And then right after that, Corey goes out and stabs a homeless man to death.
All right.
So explain to me what I'm missing.
I think that was for the audience. I don't think that Mike Myers was seeing that vision. I think what happened was, and this is where the movie went from good to great for me, is I do agree with you. I don't understand why Mike Myers is down there. I don't know how long he's been there. I don't know why he's there. I don't know how he's been surviving.
I mean, there must be a shitload of rats down there.
That was something that I thought was extremely odd. Like, that's another kind of minor issue I had with it, was like, what the hell is he doing down there? Like, what's he been doing? So that was kind of weird. Like, he's just been hanging out in there.
And it's not like it was, and it's not like it was 6 months later. It was 4 years later, according to what Laurie Strode said.
Yeah, so when he gets him by the neck and he's like looking him in the eyes and he's about to kill him, I think for me, again, I could be totally wrong, but this is my interpretation of it, is that Michael's extremely weak, you know, and he's driven by like, and this is what I was talking about the other day with when we talked about Curse of Mike Myers, how they kind of alluded to like the lore of like some evil and stuff like that. I felt like that was him transferring some type of evil, not literally, but like it was like a transformation of evil from Mike Myers to somebody else based on just his eyes. Because we always hear about Michael's dead eyes and Michael's whatever. I just feel like that was kind of a artistic way to kind of show that, you know, I don't think he was really reading the guy's thoughts. I think it was basically he was seeing in his eyes something that, because he can maybe recognize evil or something. And so I felt like when he saw that, he saw a little tinge of something in there, and he kind of transferred that in.
But he's not, but they didn't show anything of that guy being evil. I mean, that was an accident.
It might have been under the surface. I think that was the point, was like we all have maybe potential to have something like that, and maybe his was rising a little bit more to the top, you know, based on all the stuff that was going on. Maybe he was having, you know, maybe some, because even at the beginning when he was so scared of being locked in that room, I mean, he was really freaked out, you know, and he had that weird relationship with his mother. His mother was very like overprotective, and that's kind of, you know, again, I'm not saying it's like what actually it was. That's just how I took it, was like this, almost this transfer of evil from Mike Myers to Corey. And I dig that, because I just feel like Mike Myers was so weak because he just got, you know, the townspeople basically killed him just about. And that kind of evil like started taking him over. Like it's almost like just seeing the evil, you know, it like burrowed its way in to Corey, you know? So that's up for debate. Was he already a little evil? Was he not? You know, that's kind of the cool thing. I mean, that's what opens up kind of a cool conversation for me. And then I think the whole time, so, you know, like during the movie where like Corey puts his arm, like he's having help with, you know, the murders, like he'll hold it for Michael. And then remember when Michael was like stabbing that guy who was hitting on Allison at the, you know, the cop that was hitting on Allison at the diner. I just feel like every time Michael was killing, he was regaining some of that power, some of that evil again. Like it was coming back to him. And same deal when Michael was at that doctor's house, and he killed that woman. And then it was almost like this transfer of evil, you know? And again, I know, so some people, that they're already checked out. They're like, that's so stupid, man. This should be just like about, you know, this guy was just a killer, you know? But for me, I liked that addition to it. And that's how I interpreted it. It might not be right, but that's how I interpreted it.
My biggest issue with that, though, is I don't feel like you can have... I just hate when movies change their own rules in the last segment. You know what I mean? Like, in this trilogy, and the only movie that's ever kind of mentioned anything about that, about there being some kind of, like, underlying thing is the Curse of Michael Myers.
They alluded to it a little bit in Halloween Kills.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, I think there's a difference between alluding to something and then literally looking like, you know, evil's being, like, the guy's being possessed. And again, I guess my biggest problem is just the way, I don't think they marketed this movie well at all. I think personally, because me and you both, you like it more than, you kind of turned me on to Halloween 3, but we both love Halloween 3. And I know a lot of people hate it because it's not a Michael Myers movie, but to me that's okay because it's great in its own, it doesn't need Michael Myers in that movie. You know what I mean? So I wish that if they were going to do something different, then they wouldn't. I think the movie was almost held back that Michael was still alive. I feel like if he would have died in the second one, and then they had all this stuff happen, like maybe Corey finds the mask or something, I think I'd be a little bit more on board with that than just, oh, he for some reason he's in a sewer and runs into Michael Myers, and now they're like best friends going around killing people.
Well, and I think also,
I don't know.
And again, I kind of agree. I don't know why he was in the sewer. You know, I mean, that I'm still trying to like work around. And again, there's a couple of issues with the movie, and that's one of them. But for me, I think that the idea of like having a town that, you know, kind of had everything, like Mike Myers has been terrorizing this town. I kind of liked this idea of like, you know, something's still off about the town. You know, he's not even there, and like the ramifications of what he had done is still kind of underneath the surface, you know, and it kind of creates this like almost this generational curse type of thing where like, hey man, like even though he's not around, even though he's not here, you know, there's still something that's happened here that's like, you know, that's like trauma, you know, it's like hanging around. And I think that's what I really liked is like and again, just us having this conversation about a Halloween movie is what I really like. You know, because if it would have been just another movie where, you know, Mike Myers goes around, kills people, then him and Laurie face off for the final 30 minutes, you know, yeah, some people might have been satisfied, but it wouldn't have had the same type of weight. You know, it would have just been like, oh, okay, that was pretty good. But now with here, there's like strong opinions on both sides, and I think that's a really cool thing. You know, and I'm not saying movies should just go out of their way to like be divisive, but I do admire that they tried something different. You know, I mean, I feel like their trilogy was almost trying to be Halloween 1 through 3, because 3 is kind of like the oddball. You know, Season of the Witch was kind of the oddball in that first 3 movies. I feel like this one's kind of the oddball, but I feel like this will be another one that people like down the road will really enjoy, like kind of change their minds about.
See, I knew that they were going to do something kind of different because I had seen things online where the font. Have you seen this? Where the font was the same?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I knew they were going to do something kind of different, but again, I think I would have liked it way more. Like another part I liked about the movie is when they showed like those people that had been murdered, or there was a person that hung themselves or something, and it was kind of like talking about this underlying like evil within the town. I wish that would have been the movie. You know, like I said, I kind of feel like Michael Myers hurt this movie overall. I think for me personally, I think I would have liked it more if he wouldn't have been in it at all. I think it would have worked for me more if there's still like he's gone, but there's still kind of fighting with that like stigma or that trauma of him constantly being the reason for all this bad stuff happening. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and I think, and you know, when I really knew that I was really digging it, and again, this is probably when people might have checked out, but just the whole part where like him and Allison are kind of starting to get together. You know, he's riding the motorcycle. You know, I just the whole vibe of it felt so different yet kind of familiar to the Halloween franchise, but I felt like it was different in a really good way, where it was like you were really kind of not knowing what was going to happen next. And I can't remember the last Halloween movie I watched, aside from probably Halloween 3. You know, I mean, they're pretty predictable.
I'd say 5 is kind of like that too. 5 is kind of like that too.
Yeah,
though.
but like this one,
because they kind of go way off.
Yeah, but this one, like you surely didn't know what the hell was going to happen. You're like, dude, is this just going to be like this Corey dude the whole time? Like, we know Michael's in the sewers. Like, how's this going to come back? And I just loved how they brought Michael back into the fold towards the end of it. Because for me, you know, and again, I want to talk about a few more scenes, but since we're already on the topic of kind of the ending, when he kind of like finally took the mask back from Corey, or took the knife back from Corey, or whatever it was, that for me was like he got stronger again. You know, he's like, you know, I don't know. That's, again, I could be totally wrong in my interpretation, but that's just how I felt like with every kill that Michael was seeing, or that Michael was doing with Corey, it was kind of building back up that evil inside Michael that maybe, I don't know if he lost it, or like he was beaten so bad or what, but he's old in this. You know, you see at the end, he's a pretty old guy. But yeah, I just love, like I said, I just love that part about it. And I think that's what's so divisive about it, is I think people either are in that or not. You're kind of mixed on, you don't mind them going a different direction other than Mike Myers. It just seems like you didn't really like the main plot.
Well, I think they need to pick, you know, he's either the focal point of the movie or he's not in it at all. I don't think I think it's easier to have him completely out of the movie and do your own thing than to have him in the movie, have all of these previous movies setting up kind of what the tone and what the kind of what you're in store for, and then not doing that. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
it's kind of like,
were you thinking about Michael the whole time?
Honestly, I was thinking like, where is this going? You know, like, and I guess they just didn't, for me, and I'm not one of those people that you have to explain everything, but they never explained like what the deal with that Corey guy was. They never explained, you know, is he just an evil dude that, you know, we're seeing his true self now? Like, and I think they weighted it down even more by having him in that relationship with, Laurie Strode. What's her granddaughter's name? With Allison. I think that was another thing that they like tried to shoehorn in, and for me, it just didn't work at all.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I'm not. I can kind of see how you would like this, because again, you really like the third one because it kind of does those different things. It kind of takes some risks. This takes some risks, which I'm glad they did. But again, it just didn't work for me. I just wish they would have. I keep saying it, but I just feel like they weren't sure what kind of movie they wanted to make, and they ended up making two movies within the same film.
Now
I will say this:
go ahead.
No, I was going to say the one thing I will say is they did have some really cool kills in this one, which were, you know, were pretty cool and inventive, but yeah, just overall, man, I honestly could not wait for this movie to end.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's kind of the reason I asked you if you're thinking about Michael is like, to me, that's what worked about it, is the whole time you are kind of thinking like, you know, what's going on with Mike Myers? And I felt like that was kind of I think it was, they kind of did know what kind of movie they wanted to make. I think they did want to make something that kind of threw you off and kind of was not just about Mike Myers and Laurie Strode the whole time. And yeah, the marketing did kind of show that. But again, if the marketing would have shown this movie, then half the fun is taken from it, because that's what was cool about it, is that I honestly really did think, because I thought the trailers were not very good. And I honestly did think like, dude, are we going to have another movie where like they're battling it out again? And for me, I love that.
That was kind of my issue with it from the beginning, though, is I think they have, and I think about Scream because, you know, there's word that Nev Campbell won't return for Scream 6 because there's a contract dispute and this and that. And honestly, I think that might be the best thing for the Scream franchise, because I feel like having Laurie Strode constantly there, I just think I don't know. Like, I think that there's a certain point to kind of let go of that part of it. And again, I don't fault them for taking risks or making things different. But the reason that they made those trailers that they made the trailers like that wasn't so that people would be surprised by what happened. They made it that way because they knew that if they did it the other way, and they showed you what the movie was actually about, that no one would want to see it.
But to me, that's the whole point of why I think it's awesome, is because they allowed, you know, Danny McBride and David Gordon Green to even make this movie in the first place. Like, I'm shocked that the studio didn't like interfere with this one and say like, whoa. Mike Myers is in a sewer the whole time. Mike Myers is like, where's Michael Myers? And I think that is kind of what the whole town is going through too, is like, yo, man, where's Michael Myers? Like, and then when Michael Myers isn't around, it's like, well, shit, people are still killing themselves. People are still traumatized. People are still, you know, there's still people getting murdered. Like, that to me is what was so cool about it, was that to me, Halloween Ends almost represented like, hey, this is the end of this. Like, we're going to do this trilogy because in this world, it's just one, you know, the first one. And then, you know, 2018 Halloween is basically the second part of it. Like, these four movies are all contained in that one deal. And so
Well, and here's another thing that I kind of hate about Halloween as a whole, the franchise as a whole, is how many people have to get brutally murdered within a 40-year span before people just like no one, like that should be a ghost town. There should be no one. It's just like the Camp Crystal Lake thing. You know, how many summers of everyone, all of the counselors getting murdered before people say, you know what, maybe I won't take that job at Camp Crystal Lake. Maybe I won't have my whole family live in Haddonfield. And it's just, and for me, I really don't like to do that thing where people start picking apart every little thing in the movie. But I feel like most of the time when people do that, it's when they're watching a movie that they don't like. So they just, certain things that they would let slide. You know, it's kind of like you with this movie. You admit that a couple things really didn't not only not work, but they just were kind of way off base. The relationship, the sewer thing, but you look past it because you like the rest of the movie. But if you hated the rest of the movie, then yeah, all these little things you're not going to give a pass to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and for me, I think that, so just to kind of get back to like what I really loved about it, because I want to make sure I like put that out there, because I think this movie for me, this is the best movie of the trilogy, this newer trilogy that just wrapped up. And for me,
well, I don't think that's that hard though.
Well, see, I really, I liked 2018 Halloween. I really liked that one.
I did too, but I hated the second one.
But here's the thing. This one made parts of Kills better for me. And so I'm kind of excited to go rewatch it almost like in a triple feature, like just to kind of see it. But to kind of just go over a few of the things, I already kind of talked about the whole kind of Corey thing. I just loved how you said it earlier. Like they did still have really good kills. And if you want to kind of scratch that Michael Myers itch, Halloween Kills offers up like just Michael Myers just killing everybody in that movie, just killing everybody.
Yeah.
And if you want to have the Laurie Strode versus Mike Myers one, you get that in the first one. And so for me, this was really the only way they could have done it. I mean, you didn't realize it at the time, but now that I've watched it, it's like, dude, this is the only way that they could have done it. Because if they would have done anything else, it would have just been retreading stuff they've already done. And so, like I said, just for me, I love that they found a way to breathe some new life into like a franchise that, like you said, as much as I love it, it can get kind of stale because it's like the same thing every time. It's like Jason Voorhees. It's like, it's always got to be Michael Myers. And it's always got to be him going after Laurie Strode. And I think this movie, like, I can't wait to see what they do next with the franchise. I think they should let it just sit for 10 years. They won't, but they just need to let it sit for 10 and then come back with like, and I'm wanting to see if they just completely move away from Michael Myers, if they go back to him or what. And so that's kind of what I liked about it, is that they still honored Michael Myers, because when he was on screen, okay, so I will say that's one other issue I had. Like when he went back into the tunnel or the sewers and then took Michael Myers' mask away from him, that bothered me a bit. Because I just feel like,
yeah, because I mean, is he? Yeah, and I guess that's my whole thing. And there was parts where he was sitting there and he's like, man, I gotta get out of town. He's got a gash in his hand, like his hand is barely even sitting there. And Allison's like, oh, what happened? He's like, oh, cut my hand, but I gotta get out of here. And then the next scene, he's like basically telling Jamie Lee Curtis that he's gonna kill Allison if they can't, like he says something to the effect of like, if I can't have her, no one can, or something. Like just a lot of that stuff just didn't make sense to me. Like is he like pure evil now, or is he? I don't know, man. I'm
gonna get super.
It's just one of those things
super deep here. Okay, try to tell me if I'm way off base here. It's gonna get kind of fun. Here's how I really interpret this whole deal. I don't think he was pure evil at all, but I think that he saw pure evil for the first time in his life. He saw pure evil, man. He looked it dead in the eye. Pretty much looked the devil right in the eye. All right. And everybody in that town has seen pure evil, and it's affected different people different ways. Some people have committed suicide over it. Some people, like Allison, just can't get over it. They can't live a normal life. Laurie Strode can't live a normal life. She's fine. Everybody has different ways they deal with it. With Corey, maybe there was something there, and that was like the fuse. Like seeing that, it was like the fuse, and then doing that kill, which was kind of, I don't know, I'm not saying it was an accident, but I don't think he really wanted to just flat out kill the guy, but maybe he did. But that's the thing I felt like it did, was maybe that was how Michael started, was there was this little thing under the surface with Michael Myers, and that first kill he did in the first movie, that lit the fuse, And so I don't know. I could be way off, but that's how I interpret it. And that's why I think he slowly got more confident, more evil, because it was he finally felt like he was doing something that he had control over. Because his mom was super, weird to him. She wouldn't let him do anything. She was controlling his whole life. And now he was in control.
Yeah, dude. Last time she let him do something, he karate kicked a kid 3 stories off a balcony to his death.
He didn't mean to, man. That kid was messing with him.
Man, maybe she should have a little bit of parental oversight on this.
What about the moment where you had the sauce on the glass, dude, of milk? The spaghetti sauce on the glass of the milk. That was the scariest part of the whole thing.
Yeah, and again, as I was listening to you try to explain your reasoning of all of this, I think it just goes back to, you like the movie, so you're going to find ways to, and I'm not saying this because I've done this with movies too, but you're going to find ways to rationalize it in your head to where, it makes sense. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, because again,
those
I've
things
done
that I just mentioned found me. The movie, okay. That's why I like it, is because that movie did made me feel like, whoa, man, this is not what I expected at all. This Corey guy is really a good character. I was into the whole Corey Allison thing. Like I said, one of my favorite parts of the movie is when they're on their motorcycle and it's playing that song and they're just driving down the thing. And, when he's in the diner and she's like, let's burn it all down. And he goes, I'll light the match. Some people might think that's corny, but I like that. I understand if you weren't on board, that part would be cringe, but I was on board. And I think that's the thing, is you said it best. You were kind of off board first 10, 15 minutes. I was into it, but when I really got into it was the cave scene where Michael Myers takes him by the throat and the whole thing with their eyes. And then he comes out of it and he goes home.
Okay. That's not a cave. See, you're already trying to change
the sewers.
History,
the sewers.
Man. That's not a cave. That's a sewer.
Right, the sewers.
Quit trying to make it sound cooler than it is.
The sewers. And when he goes back and he's Corey's looking in the mirror and now he's seeing somebody that he doesn't recognize anymore. I don't know, man. I'm not trolling when I say this, man. I freaking loved it. I think it's top.
No, I believe that you liked it.
I think it's top tier Halloween, man. I think it's top tier.
Then I guess Halloween is a lot lower than I anticipated. So, but again, like I said, this doesn't happen very often. Now, there's times where I'll like something more than you, or you'll like something way more than I like something. But normally I'd say probably 95% of the time, we are close to the same kind of feelings about a movie. The only one that I can think of recently that we weren't this far apart was Black Phone. Black Phone's another one that I absolutely.
I wasn't huge on Black Phone either, though. I just didn't think it was the worst movie I've ever seen. Well, you were literally saying that.
I was there,
when we were walking to the car.
Dude, that movie was bad. I
wasn't a huge fan of it. It didn't work for me either, but this one I loved. And this one, I think that you might change your mind on this one down the line. I think people will change their minds on this one down the line. I really do.
I can't ever imagine a scenario where I put this back in for viewing.
Have you?
Unless it's some kind of dare.
But if you go rewatch some of these other Halloween movies, dude, this movie, I'm telling you, man, if you take the nostalgia away from a lot of these movies, okay, and you take away that aspect of it, these movies, this trilogy that just came out, and again, it's not perfect by any means. I have some big issues with the trilogy. As like, I love some things about it. I dislike some things about it. But these are about as good as you could make some of these Halloween, like a set of Halloween movies in 2022 or 2018 to 2022. I just feel like the fact that they even made good Halloween movies is pretty freaking cool.
I mean, we'll just have to agree to disagree. I like the 2018 one, but the other
you're
two,
you're gonna revisit this probably this week, and you're gonna be like, my God, Justin was right. You don't think that you would like it a little bit more now, knowing that Mike Myers isn't in it a lot? Like, you don't think that if you take away that, like,
no, because I think it's one of those that I dislike so much that I'll probably just think of more things to dislike about it, and maybe that's wrong. But that's
all right, you gotta
kind of how.
Before we wrap up, though, you gotta honestly tell me one thing you really liked about it.
There was two things I liked about it. Well, actually, three. So I thought it had good kills, which is important in a slasher movie. I thought the music was really good. And three, I thought that I thought the beginning, even though it was, I remember saying like, "Shit, where's like I was not expecting that." It was a change of pace. Like it was something fresh, something that was kind of shocking. But again, I feel like they could have, I don't know, man. I feel like you could have taken that whole part out and it doesn't really change the movie. They only bring it up, I think, one other time is when the mom is in the bar or whatever and is like griping at him because he's having fun. I feel like you could have cut that whole beginning part out and just started the movie with him going to work. But anyways.
So do you think that
all right, man.
Do you think that trying to say how to word this, because I the thing I was interested to hear what you had to say is because I think there's this thing I've been reading now that I've seen it. I've been reading some of the discourse on Twitter and stuff, and there's this idea that like people, and I don't think this is true. Like some people are like, man, you didn't like it because it didn't have Michael Myers, or man, like I don't think that's why people disliked it.
My favorite Halloween movie is Halloween 3. To me, that is, I'm not saying it's the best one or whatever, but for me, that's the one that I watch every Halloween. I watch that at least once or twice a year. It doesn't have Michael Myers in it at all. I think my issue with it is I didn't like what they replaced Michael Myers with. I don't feel like that it was completely fleshed out. I wish that they would have either chose like, is Corey someone we kind of root for, or he's someone that is like a complete psychopath murderer. And again, at the beginning when they show that scene, that's all I was saying. For me, it might not work way better if they would have cut that out, because that first scene makes you sympathize with him because it was an accident. You know what I mean?
That's what's great.
So now you're kind of sympathizing with him. No,
that's what's great about it.
And again, man, we're just not going to agree on this. And
you still stand by you saying
it's terrible.
You're still saying that it's one of the worst movies you've seen.
My actual,
because
I mean, and again, it depends on how far down. How many do we want to list? How many movies make that list before it starts?
So you think this was worse than Resurrection?
I would rewatch Resurrection before I'd watch this again. When I say that Halloween Ends is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, I still feel like I'm not being harsh enough. And I mean, that's just kind of how I felt.
Last question.
At no point was
Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. You think that's better than this?
No, I would watch this one.
Right.
I'd watch this one.
I'll take that, I guess. But my goodness, man, Resurrection.
But I mean, look at the movies that, and you tell me a movie that you wouldn't put ahead of this, and then we'll sign off. But Halloween 1, okay, the original. Halloween 2, Halloween 3. I'm not gonna put Halloween 4 in there because I think Halloween 4 is kind of weak. But Halloween 5, Halloween H2O.
I'm gonna tweet out my rankings tonight, but I wanted to do this episode first. because I don't feel like we can do like we might end up doing a full like tier list one day, maybe even this Halloween, just a quick little like 5-minute short tier list. But I will just say this: I won't give away the whole tier list, but I will just say this: Halloween 3 is definitely S tier. Okay, the original Halloween is S tier, and I'm not bullshitting. I'm not bullshitting.
Don't
you.
do it. Don't.
I'm not bullshitting you. I'm putting
Justin,
ends.
Don't even think.
I'm putting ends up there.
Don't even think. Oh
I'm
my
telling
God,
you, man.
dude.
I want to watch it again today. Are
Okay.
you hearing me?
All right, man. Yeah, I just remember, man. I gotta go.
Hey, but can we just agree how great it is
okay.
that we're even having a discussion? Like, you know, just think about Jason X and think about these like the late Jason movies that have come out or whatever. Like, you know, or even like some of the later, you know, they really tend to like drag these out to where they get worse. Ain't it nice that we even have a Halloween movie to talk about 2022 that's like, well, I know you hate it, but like that's even getting a discussion that we just don't throw away. I'm like, God.
See, no, honestly, I would rather than make something new. You know, once you're like at your 10th or 12th movie in a franchise, I really hope they never bring this back.
Where did it?
Or the only way that I'll get excited about it is if they do kind of like they wanted to do initially. John Carpenter wanted to do initially, which is each Halloween movie is like in its own anthology. Like they're all kind of intertwined. You know, they're all in the same universe, but they're all separate stories. That would get.
So that's what you want to see next.
Anything. Yeah, anything with Michael Myers or anything having to do with that, I'm checked out. I mean, how many times can you see the same shit?
And that's what I'm excited to see. You know what the next stage is. That's what I'll end with, and that's what we'll talk. If they ever announce anything about this again, we'll do an episode on it. But that's what I'm excited to see is like, what are they going to do next? Are people going to turn in to see a Halloween movie without Michael Myers? So that's just kind of because they're pretty much synonymous, like Friday the 13th with Jason. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I am interested to see what they do next. And I hope it's not just a reboot or something.
I think they could because the precedent's already been set. Halloween 3 is already kind of like a cult classic now. So I feel like it's kind of there. You know, like they've already set a little bit of a precedent with that. But who knows? Like I said, I really wish that they would just focus. There's a lot of really good original horror movies coming out now, and I wish that they would just focus their energy on make a new slasher icon. Do something else.
We can agree that 2022 has been a pretty great year for horror, though.
Great year for horror, yeah. Original horror,
and we're going to do an episode,
movie, even though I didn't. 5
years, and you're going to be like, you know what, man? I watched Ends again. Man, I'm telling you. That Corey, wow.
Jesus. All right. Well, Justin, thanks for joining me. Let us know your thoughts on Halloween Ends and where you hope they go from here, and we'll see you next time.